American pressure on Israel, not Israel, while visiting Israel, and unacceptable to Israel, to the land of Israel. Welcome to Eyes on Israel. I'm Rabbi Pesach Willicke. Over the last few days, we've noticed that a number of countries have decided to recognize a Palestinian state. Specifically, we see that Spain, Norway, and Ireland have done so. According to the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, the decision to recognize a Palestinian state has a single goal. As he writes, it is to help Israelis and Palestinians achieve peace. That's kind of interesting, considering that whether or not there's a Palestinian state and at what point there should be one, if ever, is agreed upon between the Israelis and the Palestinian Authority to be something that's to be left for negotiations. How unilaterally declaring a Palestinian state or recognizing one helps achieve peace while Israel's in an existential war is beyond me. According to the Irish statement out of the Irish government, the government recognizes Palestine as a sovereign and independent state and agreed to establish full diplomatic relations between Dublin and Ramallah. Well, at least he didn't say Jerusalem. Let's recall that Gaza has been governed for the last close to 20 years by Hamas, and Hamas is in the process of being destroyed, and there is no governing body in Gaza. And Fatah, the faction that is otherwise known as the Palestinian Authority, led by Mahmoud Abbas, that governs the Palestinian areas of autonomy in Judea and Samaria, known as the West Bank, has been in power on a 4-year term, meaning Abbas was elected to a 4-year term in 2006. There hasn't been an election since because everyone knows that he's polling less than 20% and would lose to Hamas in a landslide. So the question of who would govern what, I don't think has been all that well thought out. No one has given more thought to this than the great Ambassador David Friedman, who joins us on Eyes on Israel. Ambassador Friedman, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Pesach. It's
so, Ambassador Friedman, you were part of the Trump administration of some of the most revolutionary and important foreign policy decisions that were made about the Middle East in history, and specifically the decisions that looked like they were just merely pro-Israel decisions like moving the embassy and the Abraham Accords, ended up really bringing unprecedented peace and prosperity to the region. So when you see announcements like this by these nations that they're recognizing a Palestinian state, how do you see this? Explain to us everything that's wrong with this, please.
Look, we can't obsess about what these countries do because we'll make ourselves crazy. I mean, as you pointed out, there's 140 of them out there. And in the case of, in the case of Norway, Spain, and Ireland, I mean, these are countries with large Muslim populations. How they got that way is for another discussion. But, we're at risk in America of getting to that point as well, as we're seeing. But these are internal issues among these countries. They have no effect on the facts on the ground in Israel. It's a shame. It's a shame that all these countries are elevating a kind of cheap political short-term considerations for matters of principle. But that's what they're doing. I mean, my view has always been, Israel's got to be a great Israel and America's got to be a great America. And if we get those two things right, I'm not going to lose any sleep over Norway, Spain, and Ireland.
So, Ambassador Friedman, a lot of people listening to this, even if they're, on Team Israel and they see Hamas as the evil genocidal terrorist group that it is and pray for Israel to destroy them. At the same time, a lot of people, even on our side of the football, as it were, say, hey, a two-state solution sounds like a solution. You got two peoples, you got two states, let's divide everything up. Two people living side by side. Isn't that what the Palestinians want? You've done a lot of thinking on this. Why is that notion, in your view, incorrect? Why is it misguided?
Well, in the first place, Pesach, what it does is it just perpetuates that famous definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We've seen this movie. We actually did a dry run. Israel did a dry run for a Palestinian state when it left Gaza, right? I mean, they left behind Gaza. Not a single Jew lived there from 2005 on. Not a single army soldier was there. The Palestinians in Gaza were given, this beautiful, beachfront property with a western-facing view on the Mediterranean, a lot of agriculture. Israel had really done incredible things there agriculturally. The Palestinians got tons of money. They got it from the EU, from America, from the United Nations. UNRWA came in, was given tons of money. They were given every opportunity to flourish in a peaceful manner in Gaza, again, as sort of a dry run for what could be. And they failed the test. I mean, miserably. They took all this money and they built the largest terror tunnel network in the world, 350 miles. They bought weaponry. They began shooting rockets at innocent civilians in Israel. They elected Hamas. Remember, Hamas didn't take over in a violent revolution. They were chosen by the people of Gaza to rule. And as you point out, if there was an election today in Judea and Samaria, they'd probably win there as well. 82% of those in Judea and Samaria think October 7th was a great moment for the Palestinian people. So we just can't do this again. I mean, what we would be doing in a Palestinian state is creating a platform for the Palestinians to complete the destruction of the state of Israel. It will be a suicidal, as they say, a final solution, not a two-state solution, but a final solution for the Jewish people.
So, Ambassador Friedman, you were, of course, the moving force behind the move of the embassy to Jerusalem. We were told for decades by everyone on both sides of the aisle that if we were ever to move the embassy, oh my gosh, if the U.S. would ever recognize Jerusalem as the capital and move the embassy there would be outrage in the Muslim world, the Arab world would be aflame, and there would be riots in the streets, it would be a geopolitical nightmare. And you went ahead and moved the embassy anyway. And a lot of people think the embassy move is symbolic. And I say, no, it's not symbolic. It showed that the king has no clothes and that, in fact, there can be peace without solving the Palestinian state issue, even though we were told that that could never happen, which, of course, then lays the predicate for the Abraham Accords. Is there a way forward? Because, again, when people look at me as someone who on this show, every week on this show, I speak about how the whole concept of a Palestinian state, of a two-state solution, is no solution at all. But people always wonder, what is the way forward? Does the embassy move and the Abraham Accords and the lessons learned there, do they lay a predicate for some other solution? And I know that you've been working on something.
Well, they do, and I think the most important data point now is October 7th, because I think we've learned a lot. We have a lot of clarity coming out of October 7th, a lot of trauma, but a lot of clarity as well. What we understand is, first of all, what won't work. So I don't think I need to spend a lot of time convincing you that a two-state solution won't work. I mean, that's if I have to convince you of that, then I've got an uphill climb on this conversation. But then the question is, okay, we can say no to a two-state solution all we want. What would work, right? And what I'm looking at, and I'll have a book coming out in September on this called One Jewish State. And my point is this: right now, I think for the first time, maybe in thousands of years, you have the convergence of politics, economics, and history and faith, right? Because over the last 50 years or so, the politicians have always said, well, we got to separate the Jews and the Palestinians, the Israelis and the Palestinians, create two states, and we know that doesn't work. And the people of faith would say, don't do that, because the land you're going to give to the Palestinians includes some of the holiest sites for both the Jewish and the Christian faiths, from the tomb of Joseph to Shiloh, where the tabernacle rested, to Bethel, where Jacob had his dream, to the old city of Jerusalem, to Bethlehem, where Jesus was born and David was born, to the tomb of Rachel, to Hebron. This is ground zero for biblical Israel, right? And people of faith said, don't give it away. And the politicians would say, yeah, we get it, but we really need to in order to achieve a greater good. Okay, now everybody should be on the same page. Meaning the people of faith have been vindicated. Their faith has been vindicated politically and economically, right? We now see that they're right, and that there can't be a Palestinian state in the only way. And this is where I think I might be moving the needle beyond where the existing thinking is. The only way, I believe, for peace in the region is for Israel to have complete sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, not just Area C, which is the so-called Jewish version of Judea and Samaria, but all of it, A, B, C, the entirety of Judea and Samaria, for converging reasons. Okay, on the faith side, it's obvious. Israel will protect the holiest sites in the world for the benefit of Jews and Christians. Okay, that's easy. But what about the tougher issues that the politicians have always argued? Well, the reality is, if you look at Israel, right, it's got about a $55,000 GDP per capita, right? That's 20 times that of the Arab communities in Judea and Samaria. It's 15 times that of Jordan. It's 20, 30 times that of Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, and Egypt. So if you're an Arab living in Judea and Samaria, right, and you're looking around and you say, with whom do I want to be able to align to raise myself up out of this misery that seems to be inflicting the entirety of the Arab world? Also, none of them are democracies. None of them have transparent economies. Who do I want to align with? How do I want to improve? And the only answer, the only template that makes any sense are the Arab citizens of the state of Israel, right? There's 2 million of them. Okay, they have a 3 or 4% unemployment rate. They have the highest penetration into elite universities of any Arab community in the world, highest standard of living of any Arab community in the world. The Christian Arabs in Israel, more of them attend universities than Jews. All right. I mean, if you go to the emergency room of Hadassah Hospital or a hospital, the odds are you're going to be treated by a Palestinian doctor. So we know Israel knows what works, and it has to export that into the Palestinian territories, or I would say Judea and Samaria, and that's, I think, the solution.
We only have a couple seconds left. Tell everyone again the name of the upcoming book and when it's going to be available.
It's called One Jewish State. Simple point. There's 40 Muslim countries in the world, 30 Hindu, Christian, Buddhist countries, just one Jewish state, the size of New Jersey. It's not too much to ask for. The world should have a place for one Jewish state. You can look at the website for this. It's onejewishstate.co, not .com, .co, onejewishstate.co. And the book will be out in September, which I think gives more intellectual heft to this, I think, important process.
We'll be right back with more Eyes on Israel after this word from our sponsor.